Goldberg was such a phenomenon. And I know that he couldn't work in the ring, and he, didn't do all the moves that some of the other guys did, and he wasn't very fluid. He was very green. But guess what else he was? He was money. He had more charisma than anybody else in that freaking company. I'm telling, dude, like he had like that physical charisma.
Mhm.
Like he very much out of anybody in that company, he was like the one guy that you thought could actually kick somebody's ass.
That's
you know what I
true.
mean? Like
Mhm.
he was just super intense, and the screaming and all the mannerisms that he did. He didn't cut good promos, but he didn't have to.
Didn't have to.
He was such
No,
a big star without the promos.
I agree with that. And he was one of they're saying, well, Eric Bischoff couldn't make a star. That's bullshit. They made Goldberg.
They did.
They did. I mean, like Goldberg was nothing in September 97 when he debuts and beats Hugh Morris. I remember watching it going, wow, that guy just won.
Same here.
Everybody did that. And within 3 months, he was over. Right? Like the rise of Goldberg in 1998 is one of pro wrestling's great stories. And like I've always found it interesting that people were like, the moment he lost, it was over for him. And I find that to be interesting because if you can't ever lose, then there's like no real stakes to anything. Right? I think he had to lose. I think the circumstances of what happened were the problem. Like the fact that he lost to Kevin Nash for no and then it was the story surrounding it that made it just awful.
Well, he lost to Kevin Nash, and they ended another Starrcade, 2 Starrcades in a row with a fuck finish, right? Which Starrcade's their biggest show of the year, and of course they decided to blow the main event again. But not only that, you go back in 3. So
96 Piper
Hogan
wins. Hogan beats Piper, or Piper beats Hogan, but we don't know it's a non-title match until after.
That is true. I remember Hogan beating Piper, Piper beating Hogan, but I thought that he won the championship, and they didn't explain it until afterwards that it was a non-title match.
We didn't know it was a non-title. They didn't make a big deal about it being a non-title match until it was over. And we were all like, what the fuck? So 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
I forget. I cannot remember what happened in Starrcade 99, like for the life of me, and I don't want to.
Starrcade 99 was I think it was that Brett and Goldberg or no? I don't remember Starrcade 99.
That was Starrcade 99.
And that was Goldberg concussing Brett, wasn't it?
Yeah, Brett, the end of Bret Hart's career. I don't remember what the finish was of that match, though.
Yeah.
All anybody remembers of that. All I remember, that was Vince Russo's NWO.
Yeah.
And
which we'll get into Russo on episode 3, but yeah. So again, like they gave everybody another screw job finish at the end of a Starrcade, at the end of the biggest pay-per-view of the year. But if you go back and you look at his title run, so this is how hot WCW was. They sold out the Georgia Dome with 40,000 people even before they announced Hogan and Goldberg was going to be for the world title in the main event. Like they had announced like locally they would be wrestling, but they didn't announce it until the Thursday Thunder before JJ Dillon comes out and makes that big announcement. I remember going crazy when I saw that. I was so excited. I was such a big Goldberg fan. And then they go and they do that, and he wins the title, and he's like this big mega star. And then they go into Bash at the Beach the next month, and guess who he wrestles at Bash at the Beach?
Oh, who did he defend the title against at his first paper? I'm trying to remember. It's like a nobody.
It was Curt Hennig.
That's right.
Curt Hennig's one of the greatest ever, but he wasn't a big star at that point. He was past his prime. Not a headline act, right? Hogan, and it was like Hogan and Rodman were the main event, right?
Hogan and no,
it was Hogan and Rodman versus DDP and Malone.
Yeah, that was Bash at the Beach. Yeah, because Hogan and Leno was the main event at Road Wild.
Right. So then you go into August in Road Wild 98. Yeah. Hogan's still in the main event against Jay Leno, and Bill Goldberg's defending the world title in a battle royal. Yeah. And then you get into September, right? Goldberg's not even on the show.
The world champion.
Yeah.
the main event is the War Games.
Yes, with Ultimate Warrior like kind of fumbling around and barely able to move, setting up the big match with Hogan. You go to Halloween Havoc 98, Goldberg's best match of his career against Diamond Dallas Page.
That was the main event.
That was the main event, and I loved it.
Draw though, but it wasn't the draw. Yeah. They didn't
Hogan and Warrior.
Yeah. One of the worst professional wrestling matches between two stars in history.
And then you go to November, War Games 3. World War III. Goldberg's not even on that show. So there is no defending how they did Goldberg. And it was very clear And I think Conan was saying, I felt like Conan is pretty honest in these shows. Conan was like, there was just so much jealousy. Nobody wanted to wrestle the guy. They want to lose to him. So everybody was trying to avoid him. And I'm just like, no, like he should have victories over Lex Luger, Randy Savage, the Chris Jericho match we all wanted. We ended up not getting it. Like that was supposed to be at War Games. We ended up not doing it.
The only guy that wanted to work with him was Chris Jericho, and they wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, because Nash got in Goldberg's head. We're always pointing the finger at Eric Bischoff for killing WCW. I feel like a small pinky needs to be pointed at Kevin Nash.
Kevin Nash never should have had that much power to begin with.
No.
But Eric Bischoff allowed it.
Yes.
That's the problem. It goes back to Bischoff. All Bischoff had, because Vince would never have allowed it. Like when there were problems with the Clique, Vince bowed to them too. But I mean, like they all eventually left, and eventually Vince put everyone that wasn't named Shawn Michaels in their place eventually.
Yeah. I think that Kevin Nash's booking was atrocious. And of course, as soon as he gets the book, he books himself against Goldberg. And then of course they beat him. Look, I'm not saying Goldberg should have stayed undefeated forever, but he didn't beat anybody. Like he beat Hogan. They should have done the Hogan rematch at some point. They never did that.
Starrcade.
Yes.
That would have been a draw match.
Yeah. They should have built it to Starrcade. But they didn't do it because Hogan didn't want to lose to him again. He's like, I put him over once, and that's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to still keep myself on top, despite the fact that I'm not the World Heavyweight Champion. We're going to give him the belt. Everybody's going to think that I'm this good guy. But what I'm really going to do is upstage him the entire time.
We should, as a fun experiment, we should call Muse about this and ask. We should rebook 1998, the late 1998 WCW. What do you do with Bill Goldberg? He's the champion. How do you? Let's say I got a crazy idea. Let's say we want to make money with Bill Goldberg as the champion.
Yes.
How do you do that?
Well, I literally, like I just said, here's the problem.
Yeah.
I think that maybe they wanted to do some of the things that we would want to do, but they couldn't get anybody to do it because they didn't have the leadership skills to be able to get those guys to be put in those positions. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because Eric Bischoff was a failure as a leader. He just couldn't get guys to do what he wanted to do.
He had no problem throwing coffee in Eddie Guerrero. Like if you were beneath him, Eric